What exactly is domestic discipline? This concept's meaning is difficult to pin down. Each couple that engages in the practice of domestic discipline gives the concept a unique meaning. As you develop domestic discipline in your own relationship, you will develop your own unique understanding of what domestic discipline entails. We're the only ones with it. Having said that, there are a few characteristics of a domestic discipline relationship that are fairly universal to all domestic discipline partnerships. The following definition takes these universal characteristics into account, and further discussion of each of these traits can be found below the definition itself. Learning domestic discipline considers the following to be the definition of domestic discipline. Domestic discipline is the practice of two consenting life partners in which the head of the household takes the necessary measures to achieve a healthy relationship dynamic, the necessary measures to create a healthy home environment, and the necessary measures to protect all members of the family from dangerous or detrimental outcomes by punishing, contributing, and thus undesirable behaviors for the greater good of the entire family. The head of household system refers to this practice, in addition to correcting undesirable behaviors with appropriate consequences. The head of the household is responsible for encouraging desirable behaviors for the sake of the family's overall well-being. The person in charge of the household should always have a secure, loving, healthy, in control of themselves, and collected attitude. As you can see, that term encompasses a significant amount of information and detail. In fact, in order to avoid misunderstandings, let us dissect this term and delve even deeper. A domestic discipline is practiced between two people who have committed their lives to one another. Domestic discipline is a practice that many married couples engage in. However, we use the term life partners in our definition because we believe that domestic discipline can be practiced between any two partners who are aware that they will spend the rest of their lives together. That could mean they're married, engaged, or just friends who have been living together for a long time. And, of course, both couples must agree to engage in this behavior and maintain this lifestyle for it to be legal. That point cannot be emphasized enough by us. The head of the household takes the necessary steps to achieve a healthy relationship dynamic, to create a healthy home environment, and to protect all members of the family from potentially dangerous or detrimental outcomes by punishing, contributing, and thus undesirable behaviors for the greater good of the entire family. It is part of the job. It is the responsibility of the person in charge of the family to protect them from harm, even if it means protecting them from yourself. The head of household is responsible for protecting the family from harm not only physically, but also intellectually, spiritually, and financially. It is the responsibility of the family's leader to steer the family in the direction of a secure, stable, constructive, and joyful future. In charge is the head of household. The head of household is expected to set a good example for the rest of the family. This indicates that the hoe is the one who administers punishments for harmful or risky actions in order to achieve the aforementioned goals in the context of a relationship that includes domestic discipline. When it comes to household discipline, this is the crux of the matter. See, the head of the household is responsible for both punishing and rewarding undesirable behaviors in order to benefit the entire family. This is in addition to the head's responsibility to punish inappropriate behavior. One of the aspects of discipline that is frequently overlooked is the importance of recognizing and rewarding good behavior at home. Once again, the burden is squarely on the shoulders of the person who is the head of the household. When positive actions are reinforced, the likelihood that those behaviors will be repeated increases, which is always a desirable thing in any given situation. The person in charge of the home is always expected to act in a secure, loving, healthy, under control, and composed manner. It is never acceptable for the adult in charge of the household to impose discipline when they are angry or disturbed. Never, although risky or harmful acts may be unpleasant, the head of the home must always administer punishment while remaining collected, calm, and in complete control of their emotions and actions. This practice must be carried out in a loving manner at all times, and it must never be carried out in an uncontrolled manner. Starting a system of domestic discipline in any kind of relationship is not an easy task. However, once a couple begins the practice of domestic discipline and maintains consistency with it for a number of months, they frequently discover that they are unable to imagine their life without it. Looking back at that definition, the phrase domestic discipline makes a lot of sense, and it is well suited for defining this dynamic in a partnership because it fits the description so well. This way of life is considered domestic in the sense that it is carried out between two people who have chosen to share their lives together, as well as discipline due to the portion of the lifestyle that deals with punishment and consequence. The phrase domestic discipline is made up of the words domestic and discipline. Hesitation on the submissive partner's part. They do not want to be treated in a manner appropriate for a child. This ties in nicely with one of the other points made. HOHs frequently express the following reservations when learning about household punishment for the first time, because they do not want to give the impression that they are acting as parents to their companion. The reason for this reluctance is the same as the previous one. One simply needs to try out the experience for themselves in order to fully comprehend the dynamic. We could try to explain it, but it's unlikely that our explanation will make much sense. It is not something that can be read about. It must be experienced firsthand. They are worried that it will cause them pain. It certainly hurts. We are not going to lie about that. The discomfort, on the other hand, is only temporary, and the benefits to the relationship and family as a result of loving correction of inappropriate behavior make the experience more than worthwhile. Gain an understanding of the benefits after you've educated yourself on all of your partner's reservations about domestic discipline, as well as any fears he or she may have about it. It's critical that you understand the benefits of living the lifestyle and explain them to your partner. Domestic discipline is a type of child rearing in which the importance of a parent's authority over his or her child is emphasized. We could go on and on about the benefits of domestic discipline, but we'll focus on the most important ones that come from incorporating it into your relationship and how you live together. It draws them closer together not only physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. For someone's sake, to someone who has never engaged in the practice of home discipline, this is undoubtedly absurd. Nonetheless, the entire concept of domestic discipline necessitates a high level of honesty, trust, open communication, and love. This combination brings you and your partner closer together on a variety of different levels. It significantly reduces conflict and contention in a relationship. Many married couples without children disagree about things like children, money, work, and family time. Implement domestic discipline management. In addition to a variety of other duties, domestic discipline, on the other hand, helps to reduce the number of disagreements that occur between spouses because it provides both parties with an alternative channel through which they can express themselves. If the head of household is unhappy with how much money the submissive spouse spends, for example, the hoe will simply punish the submissive spouse rather than shouting at them, fighting with them, or doing anything else related to the topic. This gives the hoe satisfaction that the issue has been addressed and resolved, and it gives the submissive partner forgiveness for whatever transgression occurred. Furthermore, it gives the submissive partner the impression that the dominant spouse is working with her to solve the problem rather than against her. It creates a more consistent and organized environment in the home and in the relationship. It improves and stabilizes the relationship, establishes clear responsibilities for each partner, and ends any power struggle that may have existed in the relationship. That concludes our discussion. We recommend that you first carry out the 3 actions outlined in this section before approaching your partner with the idea of domestic discipline. After you've completed the first 3 stages, it's time to talk with your spouse about appropriate behavior at home. This could be the most unpleasant aspect of the overall experience, but it doesn't have to be. Keep in mind that the worst-case scenario is that your partner refuses to participate in any form of domestic discipline. If your spouse does, in fact, reject the entire concept, we will go into more detail on that later. The first thing we recommend doing before having a conversation with your partner about domestic discipline is removing all outside distractions. If you have children, make sure they are tucked into bed, that mobile phones are put away and turned off, that the television is turned off, and so on. It is entirely up to you how to phrase the dialogue, because you are the only one who knows your partner and your relationship better than anyone else. The conversation must be tailored to your specific circumstances and needs in order to be effective. Nonetheless, we strongly advise you to include some discussion of the following topics in your domestic discipline chat with your partner. 1. What your definition of household discipline entails, as well as what it excludes from your definition of domestic discipline. 2. The reasons you believe your relationship requires some form of domestic discipline. 3. The advantages of incorporating some type of domestic discipline into your relationship. This is just one example. Good day, my darling. I just wanted to talk to you about something I've been learning about recently called household discipline. Domestic discipline can be described as, but it is not. I understand that it may appear strange to you, and I completely understand that feeling. However, in my opinion, this could be extremely beneficial to our relationship, particularly with, after doing some research on the subject or speaking with others about it, I've concluded that it has several advantages, including, and, in my opinion, we should give it a shot for a while. And if it doesn't work out, well, it doesn't work out. If this is the case, we can agree to put a stop to it and continue. However, I'd like to give it a shot because I care deeply about you, and I want our bond to be as strong as it possibly can be given the circumstances. What are your thoughts on it? And do you have any questions? When discussing domestic discipline with your partner, it is critical to do the 3 things listed below. 1. Feel compassion for how they are feeling. You must understand why others, particularly those who have never heard of domestic discipline, may find the concept completely bizarre and outlandish. This is something that you should think about. You can show empathy for your spouse's emotions by saying something like, "I understand that this may make you scared," or that you may think it's insane. As a result, your spouse will feel more at ease, increasing the likelihood that he or she will have an open conversation with you about it. They will believe that they are not required to constantly justify their feelings. 2. Make certain that the 3 aforementioned components are addressed in some way during the conversation. It is critical that you do not simply sit down and declare unequivocally, "Hey there, honey, I'd like to try out some domestic discipline. What do you think?" without providing any context for what domestic discipline is or why you believe it would be beneficial for them to have it. Furthermore, it is critical that you do not simply declare, "I want our relationship to have some level of domestic discipline. I'd like to hear your thoughts on all of these websites now that you've read this website, and so on." If your spouse hears your perspective on what domestic discipline is, why you want it, and other aspects of the subject, they will feel a lot more at ease with the idea. 3. Make it clear to your partner that you have given this a lot of thought, done some research on it, and are eager to put it into action. They must understand that you are serious about this endeavor. That's all there is to it. If your wife says no, it's easy to tell someone to keep trying, to be persistent, and so on. But we don't think that's always the best course of action. When someone is repeatedly confronted with a problem, they usually become less receptive to the problem itself. This is true regardless of the problem's nature. As a result, instead of doing that, we recommend that you do the following. 1. Allow some space for the problem. Inquiring about or bringing up the subject of household discipline on a regular basis will only result in frustration and animosity. Instead, we recommend putting the problem on the back burner for a while, with the possibility of revisiting it later. If their response was something like, "There is no way on earth that we are ever going to do that," we recommend waiting at least a month or 2 before bringing it up again, if at all. If he or she was more open to the idea, but still had some reservations, we would recommend postponing the discussion for a couple of weeks. The important thing is not to bring it up again and again if your spouse has made it clear that they are against it. 2. Look into the factors that explain why. Earlier in this handout, we discussed some of the most common concerns people have about the implementation of household rules. There is a good chance that your partner's aversion to the concept of domestic discipline stems from one of the concerns listed above. Determine why they aren't receptive to the idea, whether it's for one of these reasons or another, and then conduct some research on how to deal with their fears and challenges before having another conversation with him or her about it. 3. Don't let yourself become discouraged or act out on purpose. We recognize that these are 2 distinct topics. However, we will discuss them together for the following reasons. One frequently leads to the other. It is natural to feel discouraged, disappointed, frustrated, sad, or other negative emotions in the beginning as a result of your partner's refusal to consent. Even if your spouse has given you a negative response this time, there is still a chance that domestic discipline will become a part of your relationship at some point in the future. Many couples who now practice domestic discipline started with a no. Things like this take time from time to time. It is not the end of the world if the answer is no. That is the end result. Simply take a break from the conversation about domestic discipline. Do some additional research on the topic on your own, and return to the concept when you believe the timing is appropriate. If your partner has indicated a willingness to try some form of domestic discipline, that is fantastic. The following are some getting started suggestions that we highly recommend. 1. Make a sluggish start. This is an issue on which we cannot place enough emphasis. Taking a rash approach to something like this, the majority of the time, the effects and experiences of home discipline are negative. You shouldn't feel rushed to catch up with another couple who has been practicing for over 10 years. So don't feel obligated to do so. Everything should be taken slowly. Lay the groundwork first, and then gradually build on what you've already established as the days, months, and years pass. 2. Lay the foundation or groundwork. Our previous experiences have taught us that in order for domestic discipline to be effective, 4 key foundation cornerstones must be present: honesty, respect, communication, and trust. For the partnership to be successful, these 4 aspects of a healthy relationship must be present in both parties. Domestic discipline will require all 4 of them to function properly and in a healthy manner. When you have mastered these 4 foundational pillars, You will be ready to begin constructing the framework of domestic discipline within your partnership. 3. Create your own rules list. Every couple who engages in the practice of domestic discipline has their own set of rules. Many married couples practice what are commonly referred to as the 4Ds, none of which are harmful: dishonest, disrespectful, or disobedient. Some believe that the 4Ds work flawlessly for the purposes of their collaboration. Others believe that the 4Ds are not explicit enough, so they have developed their own set of principles that are more focused and defined. Before you and your spouse can officially begin the domestic discipline lifestyle, your relationship must have some sort of agreed upon and created rules list. This is true regardless of what you and your partner decide to do. After compiling the rules list, the entire process of maintaining domestic discipline will become much simpler and more efficient. Do not be discouraged if you do not see immediate results, because it takes time to define and establish firm limits on the rules of the relationship as well as the rules of the house. Time, commitment, and consistency are not always easy to be patient with. However, if you and your spouse are patient with these things, there is little doubt that domestic discipline will enrich your relationship in ways you never imagined were possible.